Welcome to the project. We have Sasha Miguez here. I'm Moses Santos.
Rancis.
And we're going to tell Sasha a little bit about our podcast. Rancis, why don't you go ahead and do that?
So the name of the podcast is called The Project.
Okay.
And the idea behind it is basically how we expand ourselves to look at problems of the world. And the problems that we're really focused on are the problems that have to do with consciousness. So our goal with this program is to raise awareness of raising consciousness.
Okay.
So by us exploring these ideas of problems in the world that affect consciousness, we're able to have conversations that are going to help us come up with either solutions to those problems or just simply mastermind in a way that we're expanding ourselves and exploring new potentials for ways to solve those problems.
Okay.
So what we'd like to do is we're going to start off, anytime we have a guest, we start off with 2 questions. And the first question we're going to ask is, what are you most passionate about in life right now?
It's a loaded question. What am I most passionate about in life right now? I won't have to say creating change, specifically with my youth or with kids. Specifically with kids, I think that's my main passion right now, trying to influence in a positive way as many kids as possible. And hopefully with that, impacting kids directly, it trickles to their parents, because I've tried kind of both ways, and I've noticed that when you tackle kids directly, it's so much easier for them to talk to their parents and influence their own parents than when you try to get their parents to talk to their kids about it. Because if kids are passionate about it, most likely their parents are going to get into it. But if parents, it's harder to get parents to be passionate about something. The only way they talk about them to kids if they're really, really into it. So I think that's my passion right now.
Man, there's so many thoughts I have over that. I don't know if I can keep going. Awesome. What are you trying to achieve in your life right now?
What am I trying to achieve? I feel like I should have been asked these questions before so I could think about it. What am I trying to achieve? The reason I'm taking so long is because I feel like there's so many small goals that I have. I guess I'm trying to think of what's the end goal. And I guess the end goal is similar to my passion, which is why I'm passionate about it. I want to develop a system or create something that's going to be able to replicate itself and just multiply, that will ultimately create change universally. That's what I want. That's the goal. So it's a broad goal, long term, but something that should last forever.
So why don't you tell the audience a little bit about what you do and how you're gonna influence this change?
Okay. So I'm a taekwondo teacher, master, at a taekwondo school. In the school, I developed a program for kids to learn how to teach. Taekwondo. And through that is where I realized that I had the opportunity to teach them something more other than taekwondo. With the help of Rancis and Mo, with constant personal development and talking about things, and when we would get together to work on renewed mindset, I realized there's so much more to give, and I'm grateful that I have a platform to do it. So I feel like I'm blessed. I have a very big opportunity that it was put in my hands for a reason. So that's kind of where I'm at.
All right, last question. What do you do for fun?
Fun. There's no time for fun. I guess I just spend time with my family. That's really it. Or do activities like the Spartan race. That's fun.
So I kind of want to go off something. I don't know if you felt the same thing, Francis, but she said that she felt like when you direct your kids and you're teaching the kids and it trickles down to the parents. And I thought of conscious parenting. Mm-hmm. Do you remember her name?
Dr. Shibali.
So the whole concept of like, I'm wondering why sometimes when you direct the kids or you're addressing the kids and it trickles to the parents and then the parents kind of follow, is this concept of like the parents no longer have a belief system within themselves because they feel that they can no longer change. So they put all their belief systems into their child. And then from there, they change through their child because their belief system is in the child. Like they're instilling those beliefs in there. That's where I'm thinking my head is going right now.
I feel like that happens all the time now. You see that all the time.
So I have a theory about parenting, which is basically your children. When you think you've overcome and you've gotten past certain things personally that you're like, oh, I'm no longer that person. Your children come around and show you all those things that you thought you were over, right? And to me, that's kind of the moral of the story, because you're not over them if they still can get to you, right? You've only truly conquered them if you've been able to really accept them. And your children come along and there's no other choice but to accept your children, right? So in the situation where you're talking about, where you're influencing the kids, so these kids are now demonstrating potential of what they can be, right? Because they're getting exposed to things outside of their community, outside of their parents' culture, and beyond the limited walls that they have exposed to themselves. And by that, now you start to see, and the parents begin to see what these kids can truly be. And I think that's the biggest element, where the parent now can reflect and be like, oh, wow, I could be so much more as well if my child can see so far beyond. So I think that's one of the elements that really triggers that as well. What do you think from your experience of seeing that?
Yes. I think, there's so many ways to go about parenting. I have such a big opinion on parenting. It's funny because I'm not a parent. So I'm a bit biased, but I've seen it so many times. I've dealt with plenty of parents and their kids and seen both extremes. And I think that, yes, kids can influence their parents. 100% I agree with that. But it's only when parents, I don't want to say that they don't believe in their kids, but when parents, they're so unhappy with themselves. They're so unhappy with themselves, with not only who they are, maybe how they look, or maybe where they are in their life, or maybe they're not where they thought they would be, that they're totally ignoring their kid. That it's sad, because it's like your kid has so much potential. When a kid's excited, especially kids, when they do something, when they accomplish something and they're happy about something bad happens, whatever it is, the first person they want to tell is their parents. And you go to your parents and your parents kind of just brush you off. Not only does it, obviously it's not trickling to the parents, but now they're messing up everything that we just worked on, because now it's like their parents telling them, no, you're not enough, because I don't want to even hear to what you have to say. So in my opinion, I think that it kind of sucks, because parents have such a big role, and so many of them are so ignorant to it that they don't even see it. So I think it was you that mentioned it. I think it was, or I don't know if it was Mo, that said something like all parents should go through, or parents to be should go through a renewed mindset before becoming parents. And the more that I work with kids, and the more that I'm a witness to the situation I just explained, the more I agree, because I feel like you should be in a complete stable mindset and completely content with yourself and where you are before you have kids, because you're gonna influence somebody else, and whether they have a million other external sources helping them doesn't matter, because the most important person to them, at least until a certain age, is their parents.
Well, I don't know. You know, even now, I tell my parents stuff and they brush me off. I feel a certain way.
Yeah.
So, like, I definitely agree with that 100%. But you said something about teachers, not teachers. You said something about not being a parent, right? But being a teacher, I kind of relate with you.
Yeah.
Because as a teacher, you get this outside perspective, and then you see what's happening with their parents, right? And then, like, parent-teacher conference, where you sit in there, parent would come in, and we see the parent, and now we're like, oh,
I get
it. You know, I get, like, where all the beliefs, all, like, the mannerisms, everything that's been instilled comes from that parent. And we're like, oh, all right, I get it. Now I understand.
And going off of that, I think that there is some type of, something positive that comes out of not being a parent yet. Because just from experience, and I'll tell you, I'll explain it to you, but not being a parent, I've never felt that, what it feels like to be a parent, right? So parents tell me all the time, or people that talk to, you know, they say that it's nothing like you've ever felt before. It's a new love. That's what people say, with kids, with your own kids. And because I'm not a parent, I can step out of that. So sometimes parents, they love their kid so much that they're blind to maybe, you know, their beliefs or what their kid's going through. They don't even see it, because they're just like, oh, you know, my kid's like this, or it's okay, or he can't do it because he's, you know, because he's chubby, you know, oh, it's okay, you know. They create excuses for their kids because they love their kids. And me, as not being a mom, I can kind of step back from that, or I don't have that point of view. So sometimes it's easier for me to be able to teach something or maybe discipline somebody because I don't have that connection, right? And I saw it with, for example, my boss, the way he was before to how he is now that he has kids. He's a lot softer. He's a lot softer, a lot easier going. He lets things slide more because he has his own kids now. And now that his kids are going there too, now that his kids are starting to go, you know, you see a complete difference. And it's funny because I would hear parents say it all the time, wait until he has kids. Wait until he has kids. And I see it. And it's like, it's crazy the effect, even if he's not even teaching his own kids, it's crazy the effect of just having kids, you know, the way that it, you know, illustrates or demonstrates when you're teaching. So I think that there's a power there.
Yeah.
And at least until I have kids,
I was just gonna ask,
be a new power.
I was just gonna ask Rentis. I was like, so Rentis, you're the only one here with kids.
Yeah.
How do you deal between that fine line of, like, instilling the beliefs and the morals and values that you want them to have, and then kind of still?
So I've kind of there's a few things there. Number one is, like, there's always this pre-parent view of how kids should be. Like, you hear a lot of people talk about, like, oh, my kid's not gonna be running around the restaurant doing this, and my kid's not gonna right? And I think this is kind of one of those very deep-rooted points where parents believe that they're going to be, or people just in general, not parents, but people in general believe that they're going to create this being, and they're going to be able to construct this being just as they want to, and design the what they do and how they think and everything like that.
Like a Build-A-Bear.
Yeah, exactly. and I think that's the biggest issue with in parenting, because I feel that parents go in and continue on with that same kind of mental state. So when parents are like you mentioned, they don't see what their kids are going through, or the obstacles or anything, or the excuse behavior, right? What parents are doing is they're still trying to build a bear in a sense, but they're doing it from their own life, right? So what they're doing is applying their own beliefs, their own experiences to their child, right? So, my child didn't, he's not speaking up in class. The teacher can't hear him, let's say, right? And if that's the truth, that's the action that's happening, the belief of what does that mean is what the parent brings in. So the parent comes in, I had that same issue when I was a child. I have a good little story. Is my mother. My mother, she tells us all the time how she was when she was little, when it came to food. She never liked to eat too much, and people would force her to eat, and she'd just take a few bites and she'll feel full, and people would always force her to eat. Now, it's funny how all of my mom's kids, as well as her grandkids, every time they spend some time with her, end up with that same behavioral pattern, right? So my daughter spends a few days with my mother. She comes back and she's super picky. She doesn't want to eat. She says, I'm full. And then, right? Where does that come from? Did that just naturally appear in her? I think it came from my mother transposing these beliefs onto my daughter, because she's coming with all these ideas and theories and everything like that. So then my daughter is going through life, experiencing things, and she still doesn't have the judgment to say this is good or bad or whatever. What she has is the people around her and watching how they react to a situation. So once she sees, this is the way they react, okay, this is the way I should react, I guess, because this is what makes me acceptable to the tribe, to the family, to everyone, and makes me feel like I'm enough, to make me feel that as I'm part and I'm valuable, because now I'm sharing the same path as you, right? So parents start with these ideas of like, I'm going to do this, but then they kind of think they quit. It's like, the kids are just like this. But that same process of thinking the kids are just like this is like, no, because I remember going through this, and I remember this and this and this. So they pass on these experiences to their kids, even though the kids didn't live them, right? And then the kids go around life just basically carrying their parents' backpack all day long and have the same views of the world. And I think that's the biggest issues. For me, the way I try to tackle that, and I'm not very successful at it because I do it a lot too, but the way I try to tackle it is to observe my kids when they're talking together, when they're discussing things together, right? I'm observing my thoughts, and I'm like, no, you shouldn't say that, and all these judgments, and I'm like, if I wasn't here, if I didn't exist, this conversation will continue on. So it's not my place to step in and interrupt and say, no, you're wrong, you're right, and you should do this and whatever. It's letting them explore it and experience it for themselves. And that's something I feel like every parent struggles with, is letting your kids experience the world and life for themselves.
So I like what you said there, but I think that comes from a place of like the parent not feeling that they're enough. And because they don't feel that way, they don't want their child to feel that way. So what do? You try to instill and pre-impose your belief system, because you feel that your system is the one that's actually going to work and stop them from being uncomfortable, right? But the whole thing is the avoidance of being uncomfortable, because in order to feel that you're enough, you have to learn to be comfortable with the uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And we don't want that for our children. We want our children to be comfortable, right? Like, so for example, like my parents right now, they're worried about my entire life situation, right? Because they see I'm not comfortable, right? But they don't know that's just their imposed belief and their assumptions right now, what's going on. So I think that's where I feel like it stems from. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think there's a fine line between both extremes, because I agree what you're saying about letting them observe and kind of letting them do their own thing, because you do see it a lot, kids carrying their own backpack, maybe not even maybe not only their parents creating excuses for them and having the kids create excuses for themselves because their parents created excuses for them, but in the other extreme too. For example, you have I'm talking from experience from taekwondo, because that's what I've witnessed. Comes in a kid that maybe struggles to do movement. Maybe he struggles with it. Maybe he's a little overweight, or maybe he's not he hasn't been working out, so obviously his conditioning is not there yet. And then you get a parent that criticizes the kid. You know, I did it when I was a kid, and I was good when I was, I got to black belt, or I got to, why are you not doing that? Or they're pushing their kids to do hobbies that they did because they liked it, when their kids don't like that. The kids wants to do art, and it's funny I'm saying that because, for me, I want everyone to do taekwondo. But, we're talking about kids here, and parents don't let kids, or they don't understand that they're their own person. They're not a replica of the parent. They're their own person. We're here only to, here to guide them, right? So something happened to me, and I'll never forget. I was probably 15 years old, and I had just gotten home from a party, and I was probably drunk, or I had been drinking. And my mom sits me down, and I was like...
She's not 15 anymore.
No.
She may look it, but she's not.
So my mom sits me down, and I was one of those kids that I still am now, but, if you tell me not to do something, it makes me want to do it more. So she sat me down. I think she got a napkin, and she got a piece of pen, and she drew 2 lines on a piece of paper, on the napkin. And she put a dot here in the beginning, and she said, "This is you." And she put another dot, and she said, "This is me." So she said, "I'm here to tell you what you should do or what you shouldn't. But the second you walk out this house, it's on you. I'm not there with you." So she draws this line, and she draws it us going together. She says, 3 years old, 4 years old, 5 years old, I'm with you. I'm holding your hand, right? I'm telling you, right? And then she goes, as you start getting a little older, I have to let go of your hand. Maybe I'm holding your shoulder. And I'm still next to you, but right, I let you go a little bit. And now I'm here because if you get out of the line, I'm here to push you back in, right? You're making your own decisions, but I'm here to guide you, right? So she's like, every time you get out, I'm pushing you back in. And the goal is that, or what will eventually happen is that I have to let you go. And you're going to have to be on your own. And the hopes is that you took in as much information as possible to be able to make your own judgments that will lead you through the right path, right? And I'll never forget that. I'll never forget when she did that. And that kind of made me change my entire perspective as like saying that, you know what, the decision is mine. I am my own person, and I am on my own, right? Even though she's guiding me, I'm on my own, because if I do decide to do this, even though maybe I know there will be consequences, or I know maybe there isn't going to be a positive result that comes out of this, I still made that decision, right? And so that whole thing I'll never forget. I know I forgot where that led from, but what I was saying originally was that there's a fine line between, creating a bunch of excuses and constantly controlling your kid, and then kind of just like, okay, I'm going to let my kid do whatever he wants, and I'm just going to observe them and let them figure it out on their own. Because in my opinion, there needs to be some type of guidance. There needs to, because they can observe all they want, but they don't have the tools right now to be able to like harness it, right? They're just, in my opinion, I think they're just absorbing everything.
So I think I see Rances interact with his kids all the time. I think Rances does an amazing job of showing his kids all the possible options and why they are these options. And then he lets them make the decision. And I think it's really hard to do that because you need to have a crazy amount of patience, right? To let your child make a decision on what you feel is right or wrong in that moment. But what he's doing, and I think what he's doing a great job of, him and Paola are doing, they're allowing their children to be great at decision making, which is the problem that I see as a teacher, especially when kids start to get into middle school and high school, is that they're afraid to make decisions because throughout their entire life, their parents have made the decisions for them. So even small things like cleaning up your room or picking up after yourself and things like that, when your parent is telling you to do that for you, or your parent does it for you, right? Either way, you have not made that decision. You have no control over that. So what happens is, as you get older, and these are the habits that you see in older people, right? Like myself, when my mom cleaned everything for me, I have trouble maintaining organization in my room until I decided to live by myself, and now I can be able to do it because I was like, you just get sick and tired of it. But the thing was that you're teaching your child how to make a decision, and their decisions in the beginning, like anything else, is gonna suck, right? When they first start anything, like anybody in life, when you first start something, you're horrible at it, right? So right now, what makes it so difficult, and what I see in your struggle sometimes, is that your children's decision making sometimes is not always 100% in line with your decision making, and that gets frustrating. So I think that's where I think it's not so much necessarily stepping back and letting things happen, but letting the child make the decision, and then you, from your kind of like the whole perspective of like the warrior, the victim, and we can talk about this from parenting, right? How we translate those things, right? Warrior, victim, proactive, and then the observer, right? As the parent, you want to be the observer, and you don't really want to really get into any of these other roles when you're trying to teach your child how to make a decision. So now my question for both of you as a teacher and you as a parent, right? It's like, what's the most important thing as a parent you can do in order to make your child successful, whatever that definition of a successful is?
Well, I'm actually...
or happy in life.
So that's where I wanted to go. So thank you for asking that question, because mine and my wife, we've talked about this deeply. So there's a big difference between, like what Sasha said before, is like guiding them through a path and what's right and all these things. We don't have that idea. Within our parenting, we don't have that idea of basically expectations. We don't think by no means that we know what's right. We don't think that we are here to guide them to what they can become. Our goal as parents is to help our kids become the most fulfilled versions of themselves, and they decide what they do with their lives. And with that, if my kids ask me a question, like you said, I try to give them a broad spectrum of decision. But you said one thing is a misnomer. You said I try to give them all the options. That's a misnomer, because I specifically tell them, these are the options that I'm aware of. So I always try to leave that space of, I don't know everything, right? And you guys can explore beyond my borders of what I know. So like questions of religion and stuff like that come. I have my own thoughts and ideas, and I explain to them my thoughts and ideas. And I've done a lot of religious like studies, like where I looked into the religions and where they come from and all these things. So I also can give them a bit of that interpretation. But we always end the conversation, but these are basically just beliefs. Everyone has their own beliefs, and everyone's entitled to their own beliefs. We try not to judge these beliefs, and we can create and choose whichever we want, but knowing that we're making the decision to put ourselves into this belief, that is the power of knowing that we're not number one, we're not right, we're not correct in any form of the meaning of the word. This is just the little box we decided to sit in. And to me, that's allowing them to stay open and connected to everyone else. Because that's where I find that it's like the idea of I'm right and this path is right and all these things right starts creating separation from others. Oh, someone did it a different way, so they're wrong or whatever. And I always want to leave that open to my kids to explore. So what our goal is more to have them have the capacity to expand themselves into whichever direction that life takes them, and for them to be so fucking strong that they can take anything that life throws at them and not only do well and survive, but to actually thrive.
Love it. All right, Sasha, from the teacher perspective, what do you
was the
think is what do you think is the most important thing that you can give a child in order to thrive in life?
Give a child?
Yeah.
That's so hard. Just kidding.
Guys, we didn't end the podcast. Sasha's still thinking.
I woke up. I'm back. The most important thing I can give them for them to thrive in life. I don't know. I'm just gonna tell you that I don't know, because there's so many things that run through my head, but for me to be like, no, this is the most important one, it's hard for me, because when I get kids, I feel like every kid needs something different. So it's how, for me to say, okay, everyone needs this one thing and then they're going to be successful if I do this, right? For me, I think that every kid's unique. Every kid comes with their own issues or their own insecurities, and I think for me, that's my job, is to kind of highlight them and help them through it, or help them be okay with whatever it is they're dealing with, and that's how they will thrive, in my opinion.
And for you, Moses?
Oh man, I haven't taught, and I'm no longer a parent. I'm no longer a teacher, and I haven't taught in almost 3 years. But looking back and reflecting back on my teaching, what I would have changed with everything that I've learned, and the program that we created, Renewed Mindset, I think the number one thing I would want to give any child is for them to understand that their beliefs are malleable, and that at any given point, at any time in their life, they can change. And they can change anything about themselves, whether it be physically, mentally, emotionally. They can do it and thrive in life. I think that's the number one thing I would teach.
And on that note, like, if you can, when you said that, I instantly thought about awareness. Like, if you can instill awareness into every single kid, it doesn't matter what their insecurities are. It doesn't matter what they're dealing with, or if they're going to be strong enough or not, because they're going to have that awareness to be able to realize it and then confront
make a change.
it.
Yeah. And not even every child, every human being on this goddamn planet needs awareness.
Yeah.
I think
it's a lot harder to find or to conquer it than everybody's like, well, awareness, that's so easy, but it's so hard.
I don't know if people really understand that, but I think that's maybe another topic for another podcast. So hard. But Sasha, I want to ask you, I want you to let everybody know where people can find out more information about what you do, where your school is located at, and where they can contact you.
Okay, my school's in Fairview, New Jersey, and our school is United Taekwondo, but you can find us on Instagram, which is it's United Taekwondo Fairview, and basically through there, or you can find me through Instagram, which my name is Sasha Miguez. And that's basically it.
All right, guys.
She's an amazing teacher, by the way. I take my son to her, and I take my son to her not because it's convenient or close, because it's not.
It's far.
But because I honestly believe in her and how she touches these kids' lives.
Plus, she changes to like a Korean accent. Awesome. Fucking awesome. It's so fun to watch. All right, guys. Thank you for listening to our podcast. Stay tuned for our next episode.
Peace. Peace out. No, we don't do that?
Yeah.